Hey guys, Joseph here from ChronoLogic, and here we are with another ChronoLogic live stream. So in this live stream, we have decided to dedicate some time to answer some of the community questions we've been getting since the latest release we had with MyCrypto and the new Ethereum Alarm Clock. So just to see if you guys can hear me all right, could you post one in the question box below? Just so I can see you guys are here. Perfect. I see a lot of you guys responding. That's awesome. So let's get right into it. So as we had the release last Friday with MyCrypto, there has been a surge in interest for the Ethereum Alarm Clock and scheduling on Ethereum in general. So let's go through the release a little bit. So since the release last Friday, we've had a couple of mentions in the big crypto media. We had it in CCN, in ETH News, and we were trending on the Ethereum Reddit. So hopefully you guys have checked out all the articles, and we are super proud to have been a part of these news organically, and it's just amazing. And once we've seen all the interest we've had on Reddit in regards to MyCrypto and scheduling transactions on MyCrypto, we've seen that there is indeed some interest in this space, and we're looking forward to any new applications you guys could figure out or find out for scheduling transactions on Ethereum. So so for you guys who were not there at the release, we had an amazing webinar with Connor from MyCrypto last Friday, where we've kind of gone through the whole path of implementing scheduling transactions in the MyCrypto wallet. And today I have Daniel here with me. Daniel is one of our developers who has been focused on implementing a lot of the features in MyCrypto and of course in our dApps and all this kind of stuff. So Daniel, say hi to everybody.
Yeah, hey guys, it's a pleasure. There's been some interest, some questions after the release, so we gladly summarized these questions here in these slides, and we're happy to answer them.
Yes, perfect. So let's get started with some of the community questions we've had in our Telegram groups, in our Reddit thread, and so on and so forth. So let's jump straight right into it, right? So the first question we have here is the Ethereum Alarm Clock implementation exclusive to MyCrypto, or can you use it on other platforms? So as a small recap, let's just go through the Ethereum Alarm Clock. So the Ethereum Alarm Clock is a protocol that enables scheduling transactions for the future on the Ethereum blockchain. So having Ethereum in its name, we can clearly see that the Ethereum Alarm Clock works on the Ethereum blockchain. And of course, we have worked closely with MyCrypto to get this implemented, get this scheduling functionality implemented within the MyCrypto wallet. So we have built an integration layer between the Ethereum Alarm Clock protocol and the MyCrypto wallet. And some of the guys in the community were asking if they can use this kind of scheduling functionality on other platforms. So maybe Daniel, you can tell us a little bit more about how we can use this on other platforms.
Yeah, so there's a couple of possibilities. So first we have EAC.jslib, which can actually be implemented into some kind of your application. Then we have EAC ICO starter, which lets you integrate like a schedule button, like schedule contribution later when the ICO actually begins. So we have these two kinds of libraries, and you can also integrate by using more like raw approach, which means you don't use EAC.jslib, you don't use EAC ICO starter, but you come up with your custom scheduling solutions, since these are just smart contract calls. So for example, this custom solution was something we used for MyCrypto. So yeah, you can use it.
Exactly. So we have worked closely, of course, with MyCrypto, and we are also working with working on building other partnerships. and to get this functionality in as many platforms and dApps as possible. So, but anybody basically can use this using the tools that we have built. Thanks, Daniel. So a second question we have is for people who have been trying to use our dApp to run a TimeNode. So in order to run the TimeNode currently on our Chronos app, on our TimeNode applications, you can find all of these executables and all of these tools on our GitHub channel. But in order to run these, you need to have a certain amount of day tokens. So you need to have 333 day tokens, or if you do not have day tokens, you can also run a TimeNode by binding it to an address that is also a time mint. So and we had a question from a couple of you who asked, like, how do I know if I'm a time mint, right? So if you were a contributor during the ICO, you're probably most certainly at time mint. So in order to check which of your addresses is bound as a time mint, there is a pretty easy check that you can do on Etherscan. So I'll do a short just a run through of how you can actually check this. So if you go to Etherscan, and if you go to this specific address, which I'll post also in the chat below, this is the address of our day token of the day token contract, right? So as you can see here, token tracker day. So what you can do here is you can go here to this tab called Read Contract, and this Read Contract tab will give you a insight into all of the functions that that the contract has. So what you can do is you can go get minting power. You can search for get minting power by address, and here under number 43 there is a function called get minting power by address. What you can do here is you can paste your address here, and you can press this query button. This query button will respond with a result, and this result will be your minting power. So as you can see, in my case, for this random address that I chose, the minting power is 0. So that means that this address is not a time mint. But if indeed your address is a time mint, you will get something other than 0 here in this minting power field. This is kind of like a short check that you can do, and hopefully you guys can figure this out. So if you're wondering if your address is a time mint, then this is a pretty sure check to do. So let's get back to our questions. So we had another question in regards to failed claims. So so it says a failed claim 3 times. So can somebody tell me why is this so? And his TimeNode has never been closed. Daniel, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So the problem we're experiencing here is actually related to race conditions. We have a couple of workarounds, but none of them works perfect, which means that we don't have a good way to communicate right now that someone else has sent claim transactions, and your TimeNode might send this claim transaction as well, which means one of them is going to win. So that's basically a race condition. To mitigate this issue, we are checking transaction pool. We are checking if the transaction pool already contains a similar transaction, but this is not perfect, and we're trying to implement better peer-to-peer solution of coordination between time nodes. If someone sends a claim transaction, so the other time node does not duplicate it. So yeah, this is race condition, and currently we're working on implementing some better communication mechanism.
Exactly. So this is a problem that I'm sure you guys are also aware of. We have also mentioned this in a number of previous webinars, and this is one of the things about the Ethereum blockchain and about communications in general, I guess. So you always have the network latencies, and you always have, the differences, in it's kind of like these network conditions, and all of this can kind of affect some of these transaction collisions that might happen when claiming or executing a transaction. So we are trying our best, to kind of mitigate these as much as possible. They will probably it might not be able to mitigate them like 100%, but we have already gotten it pretty close to kind of to get it as better as possible. So stay tuned for our updates on this, and now we will have plenty of time to kind of dedicate to kind of improve this kind of communications. Okay, so the next question we had is, so next to the active time nodes part on the DApp, there are 3 dots progressing, so it is a loading bar. Why can't I see the TimeNode analytics? So in our DApp, we do have analytics enabled, and because our DApp is built in a decentralized manner, in a decentralized way, basically all of the code, all of the processing that is done by the DApp is done locally, right? There is no central server. This is a decentralized application. So in this case, we tried to find a way to kind of add some analytics to the DApp, but the only way to do this was to make the DApp of each individual time node communicate with our analytics tools on Keen.io, and sometimes if you're running the DApp in a browser with some privacy tools enabled, for example, Ghostery or some other tools, you might run into issues because they might block some of the communications between the analytics server and your time node. And this is fine for people who might feel that they don't want this communication happening. That is fine. You can always leave your privacy tools enabled, but you will not be able to see some of these analytics. And we have implemented a number of ways to check if you have these analytics enabled, and if you have this analytics enabled, we would show kind of like a warning saying, okay, you cannot see this active time nodes analytic because you have not whitelisted our DApp and privacy tools. But there are so many privacy tools that it's kind of hard to kind of detect each and every one of those. So if you want to really make sure that you have all the analytics visible, the number of time nodes and these kinds of things, make sure that you have whitelisted the DApp, and this will work as kind of a way of making sure that the communication between our analytics server and the DApp does indeed happen. Anything to add here, Daniel?
No, I think it's a complete answer.
Perfect. Okay, let's go to the next issue. So as we had the release last week, we have seen you guys being very active and trying to testing it out, trying out some new features, seeing if something if something's broken, if everything works fine. And of course, there are always some areas where we can improve. So some of you guys were not clear on where you could post these issues. How do you open issues requests, something that you want fixed, or something that you want improved, or something like that? You can always do this on our GitHub page, and I'll do a short just run through of how you can do it for you guys who maybe have not used GitHub before. So let's do this. So what you have to do is you have to go to github.com/ChronoLogic, and this URL is basically the ChronoLogic account for GitHub. What you can see here on this account is a number of repositories being all the code that we do and I'm sure you guys, or some of you guys who are developers, you will know perfectly what I mean. But some of you guys who don't, this is where all the action is happening. Basically, this is where all the development is happening. So it's always, if you want to know what is currently going on in any project, basically, not just in ChronoLogic projects, but in any project, you can always, if the project is open source, you can always find it here. So once you open the ChronoLogic GitHub, you will see a number of repositories, and let's open one of the repositories here listed on the left-hand side. So, for example, we have this Ethereum Alarm Clock dApp repository. Let's open this up. So once we have it open, this is our Chronos app. So if you go to app.chronologic.network, you will see this exact app. So if you have found an issue with app.chronologic.network or one of the Electron time nodes, you can always open an issue here in this repository. So here underneath the title, we have the ChronoLogic Ethereum Alarm Clock app. You have the Issues tab. So if you press on the Issues tab, you will see that there has been a number of issues already opened by our best community members and our awesome community members who have been active with testing things out and playing around with the time nodes, running them. And we appreciate all of these issues being open, and we try our best to close as many of these issues as possible. So what you would do is here on the right-hand side, there is a green button, New Issue. You would press this button, and you would have a small text field here to fill out. So basically, you would type the title of the issue, and here under the write-up, you would do list that is as detailed as possible with all the description of the problem, where does it happen, how do you replicate the issue, and how do you kind of give us any logs if you have, and give us as much detail as possible. So once you put this in this comment, you press Submit New Issue, and our team members will check this and try to help you with the issue. So hopefully this makes it a bit clearer on how to report issues. Okay, Daniel, you want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. So the question is there some reward when your TimeNode executes the scheduled transaction? So the whole pillar of this system of the Ethereum Alarm Clock is actually the bounty system, which is a reward system. It means that your TimeNode gets rewards when you execute the transaction. And these rewards are set by the people who schedule transactions. So when the person actually wants to schedule transaction, for example, using MyCrypto, they need to set a time bounty. And obviously, the higher time bounty, the higher the chance that TimeNode is going to execute it, because TimeNodes obviously also have their costs, like gas costs for executing these transactions. So yeah, you get rewards for executing TimeNodes, and this is the model of the Ethereum Alarm Clock market.
Exactly. And I'd like to just add a small thing here. So basically, the whole Ethereum Alarm Clock protocol is kind of built in a way that is similar to how the Ethereum blockchain works. It is in kind of an incentivized way of maintaining the network. So users need to schedule transactions, and time nodes are incentivized to execute these transactions at the time of execution. So it is basically an incentivized market that has been developed within the Ethereum Alarm Clock protocol. Okay, so another question we have is, how is the cost of the scheduled transaction determined? So basically, the cost of the scheduled transaction is made up of a couple of parts. So the first part is the amount of Ether that you want to transfer. So if you want to transfer 1 Ether, this will fall under the cost of the scheduled transaction, because this 1 Ether will be held up in the smart contract, and will await its execution at the right time. So the first thing is, of course, the Ether that you want to transfer. Second thing is the deposit. So if you sorry, not the deposit, the time bounty. So if you want to make sure that your transaction has been indeed executed, you would post a small bounty to anybody that would execute this transaction. So and the last thing is, of course, the gas cost. So if in order to make any action on the blockchain or Ethereum blockchain, you do need to send a transaction that costs gas. So so this would definitely be the three parts of the scheduled transaction. So when you go to mycrypto.com or on our Chronos app, if you would schedule a transaction, and you would see that the cost of the transaction on MetaMask, for example, it would show the cost of transaction of, I don't know, $10. This $10 will be made up maybe like $8 sending Ether, $1.50 of time bounty that will be awarded to the TimeNode, and maybe 50 cents of gas cost. So this would kind of make up the whole cost of the scheduled transaction. So don't get scared if you see that the initial cost of transaction is high, because it will largely depend on the amount of Ether that you are sending in the scheduled transaction. So we just wanted to make that clear. Daniel, you have anything else to add to this one?
Yeah, I wanted to say that the gas cost is actually, we have two gas costs here. So first is gas cost of scheduling, and second gas cost is the future gas cost. So in addition to time bounty, you also need to put like a automatically calculated refund for the future execution gas cost. So this is like one gas cost, the future gas cost, which is also including transaction cost. And we have the scheduling transaction cost, which you actually see in MetaMask, and it depends on the gas price you set when scheduling.
Exactly. Good addition, Daniel. Thanks for bringing that up as well. Okay, so we have another question. Is there a plan to extend the Ethereum Alarm Clock to other blockchains? So the Ethereum Alarm Clock, as you can see with the name, it currently operates within the Ethereum ecosystem. So we are indeed planning on expanding this, and we are looking for ways to maybe to make this either blockchain interoperable or something to that aspect. But we will still see if this will be a part of the Ethereum Alarm Clock protocol or the Chronos protocol, the future next level scheduling protocol. We are trying to find some partnership, for example, with Rootstock, with RSK. We are talking with them and looking for ways we could implement the scheduling functionality within their blockchain. And hopefully some of this comes to fruition. But stay tuned for more news about this kind of stuff. Anything else to add, Daniel?
Yeah, you mentioned interoperability. In terms of interoperability, we are kind of looking on these solutions that are still work in progress, like Cosmos and Polkadot, but it's still very early to state anything. So yeah, as Joseph said, stay tuned.
Exactly. Okay, so what else do we have? Okay, so we have in MyCrypto, when I select the bounty options, the value in dollars does not change. Only $0 appears. Is that correct? Daniel, you want to take this one up?
Yes. So there are two things that might have happened here. So first, it calculates dollar value only on mainnet. So if it shows 0.00, it's possible that you are on Kovan testnet. And since Kovan ETH is worthless, then it will show 0.00. And the second possibility is that the time bounty field is invalid. If it's invalid, it will show 000. It's not the best UX solution we have implemented. We will probably come up with calculating real price in the future. But how that works, to give you example, if you don't have enough ETH in your account and you choose bounty that is higher than your balance, then it will be invalid and it will be shown as 0.00.
So just make sure that the balance on your account is higher than any bounty that you would like to set, and you should be fine on the mainnet. And on the test nets, of course, test ether is worthless, so it will always show as 00.
Exactly.
So, okay, let's go to the 11th question we have. So, I'm using the same ether address for 2 time nodes. I'm wondering if this will cause a problem. Daniel, you want to take this one on?
Yep. So we do not advise running 2 time nodes on the same ether address, because in the Ethereum blockchain you have concept of nonces. So each transaction you send has its index, like 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you are running 2 applications that use the same wallet, which means you are running 2 time nodes, they might not properly communicate. And it's possible that they will, for example, choose the same index for different transactions, which means only one transaction is going to pass. In reality, miners process transactions with higher gas price. So you might find yourself not executing some transaction, or not claiming some transaction, because 2 applications use the same wallet and they both increment this nonce thing. So it's better to have 2 addresses if you really want to run 2 time nodes than to make 2 applications use 1 address.
Exactly. I have nothing to add. We would just encourage people that they just keep on using only 1 address, as this is the preferred way. So another questions we have is, how much ETH do you need to start a TimeNode? So this one has actually 2 parts. So how much ETH do you need to start a TimeNode? So if you want to start a TimeNode, basically you need to have a certain amount of ETH on it, right? So what we advise is to have a amount of ETH that is maybe higher than any time bounty or any deposits that your time node might need to make. So, for example, if you want to execute transactions that require a high deposit, because people, when they schedule transactions, they can request a deposit from the time node if the time node wants to claim this transaction. And so if you want to make sure that you will execute only like the very important transactions, you might want to put a bit more ETH in it, just to make sure that you cover any deposits that schedulers might ask of you, people who schedule transactions. And of course, to cover any gas costs that might happen. So because if you have a balance of 0 on the time node, you will not be able to either claim or execute any transactions, because you will not be able to send any claim requests or execution actions. So you do need a small amount. If you ask us about the specifics in let's say USD value of Ether, so maybe I guess anywhere from like $5 US to I don't know, $20-$30, I think should be fine to get you started with running a time node. So then you'll have something to
add? No, actually, yeah, like $5 worth of it should get you started.
Exactly. Okay, and I think this is basically the last question we have for today for this session. Is an issue with that is a bit more technical, but so on the Ethereum Alarm Clock, when you schedule these transactions towards other contracts, you do have to keep in mind that the contract, that the msg.sender value of your scheduled transaction will actually point to the smart contract, not to the original address that scheduled the transaction. So we have looked for ways to kind of make this better, right? But it is not a very easy solution. So if you do want to make sure that the contract you are sending this transaction to, they're scheduling this transaction to, make sure, if you want to make sure that message.sender is indeed your original address that scheduled the transaction, you will need to use some sort of proxy contract. Unfortunately, this is not yet implemented. This kind of functionality is not yet implemented on our front ends, and we are currently looking for ways to improve on this, to add some sort of UI way of setting this message.sender value. So, but for now, this would be kind of like a proxy contracts would be the way to go. But as we refine the Ethereum Alarm Clock, we'll kind of add more functionality and more tools to this to make this as easy as possible. Okay, we have another one. Okay, so one of the basically requests that we have had on the Reddit thread in the Ethereum Reddit is people have said that it would be nice to have a chat box that sets the gas price to the average of the past few blocks at the time of sending. So what do they mean by this, right? So people have requested that that this checkbox at the gas price would be set to this value, but what we actually do is we check the current gas price and then we set it to this exact gas price to be the future gas price with which the scheduled transaction will get executed in the future. So while this could be like a nifty feature, we might consider it, but I don't think it solves like a very big issue, because currently you can be confident that by using the Web3 basically estimating gas prices through the Web3 JS tools, they have proven to be pretty reliable. So we don't think that this is like a very necessary feature. So I think you guys can feel confident that the estimations for the gas costs are indeed accurate. Okay, so we have come to the end of these community questions we've been getting. If you feel that we have missed some questions, or that you have some additional questions, we can now get to answering some of those. So go to the chat box, go to the question box below, post some questions, and we'll just go through some of those. Daniel, you want to go through the first one? We have a couple already.
Yeah. So the first question was asked by Carlo. Is the starting mining power? Is it the starting mining power or the actual mining power? So it relates to when we showed how to check if you are time mined. Actually, I don't know. So we need to kind of escalate it. I assume it's probably like the actual mining power, but I wasn't around when the ICO contracts were created.
Well, yeah, I assume it does not really. I think it's both, because I think none of the minting powers of the TimeMints are currently at 0. So if any of those is not 0, you should be fine. But you can use this actual one, and this will be a pretty accurate description. So yeah, sounds good. Okay, we have another question here, which is if I have a TimeMint and I have to choose between running a time node or continue to mine, or have some other way to mine and run multiple time nodes. Well, our time nodes can run alongside any mining software that you might have. So of course you can you can use the same address with well, I guess you can use it with the miner and the time node. I haven't really tried it, but it should run alongside any other tools that you have on it.
I think what Leon is asking about is if he has a time mind. So I think the answer is yes, because it actually you don't need to lock or do anything to your tokens. So it means you can perfectly continue to mine your tokens. You can actually use a time mind address to sign
Exactly.
the time node address. So yeah, you will be perfectly fine if you have a time mind and then you sign it for your time node.
Exactly. I misread the question. It's a time mint, not a time node. So yeah, you just use the time mint address to sign, and you should be fine. It will just continue minting tokens, tokens, and you can continue and you can use the time node. That's perfectly fine. Okay, let's see if we have any other ones.
Yeah, guys.
So
yeah, the one thing is that yeah, we won't answer the questions related to price. We can talk about such stuff.
Yep, and we have some questions that. Okay, so, we see that some people are concerned with some of the transactions collisions we have with claiming and executing. So in order to kind of mitigate all of these kind of like collided transactions, you can always set your economic strategy to be to kind of play around with it, right? So set like a minimum balance that you under which you will not want to send any claims. You can turn off claiming entirely, right, and then just try executions, and this will kind of like the best formula for these kinds of parameters currently not known, because we are still in the early stages, and there is we are still waiting for more people to onboard more people to start scheduling transactions, and then once we have a lot more transactions scheduled, there should be also like less of a issue to run a time node. But for now, make sure that your economic strategy parameters are set to be as accurate and economically viable as possible.
Yeah, this is something we are aware of, and we are trying to come up with some good system that would actually mitigate the issue. So yeah, I think it's our #1 priority at this point. So yeah, we are aware of this.
Okay, so let's take another question. So we have a question that says, can I schedule with my TimeMint? So yes, you can indeed schedule with any address that you have. It can also be the address that is your TimeMint. You just have to make sure that it does have Ether on it. So if it has Ether on it, you should be good to go to schedule it. So it will not collide with any functionality. So you're fine with that. Okay, so, and let's take a last question. So do all time nodes always discover all the transactions, or just some of the transactions scheduled in the ecosystem? So the time nodes discover basically all of the transactions that are scheduled, right? So they will keep searching the blockchain, waiting, watching, and once they see a transaction that is scheduled, they will do a check. Is this transaction claimed already? Is it executed already? If they see it's executed, they will just disregard it. If they see that it has not been executed yet, if you have claiming enabled on your time node, it might try claiming it. But if it sees that this transaction is executed, and the execution time is now, and now is the time to execute this transaction, it will immediately try to execute it. So hopefully this, so it also discovers all the transactions that are scheduled on the Ethereum Alarm Clock protocol. So if you implement some bindings to this protocol in any other platform, be it MyCrypto, be it our DApp, these TimeNodes will always discover all the transactions from these different platforms.
Yeah, I would just like to add that the TimeNode actually watch transactions, but we call this like buckets. So it means you see, I think it's implemented that you see like few hours ahead with your TimeNode at this point.
Yep, that's it. Okay, guys. So hopefully you guys have a clearer idea of some of the questions that you've been having in the past couple of days since we had the release with MyCrypto, and hopefully you guys are excited about all the traction that has been going on, and we are happy to see so many news portals mentioning ChronoLogic, mentioning MyCrypto, mentioning the Ethereum Alarm Clock, and hopefully we are working towards making this a better ecosystem for TimeNodes, for you guys, daily token holders, and hopefully you guys are all excited, and stay in touch, and let's make this an awesome ecosystem. Keep on testing it, keep on playing around with it, and let us know your thoughts. Thanks, guys, and thanks, Daniel, for co-hosting this live stream with me.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, enjoy your day. Cheers.
Thank you, guys.